Welcome to the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing for Monday, March 26th. This is Gina McGuire. Over the last 2 weeks, we've seen precipitation affect really all areas of the Great Basin. However, the precipitation that has fallen over the northern two-thirds of the region has been well above normal for the time of year. Further south, any precipitation over southern Nevada and most of the Arizona Strip into parts of southern Utah has been below normal. If we look at the snowfall over the last 72 hours, we have had some new snowfall in the higher terrain of Utah, Nevada, and into the Sierra and areas further north, with the heaviest amounts in the northern Sierra and up into eastern Idaho, Wyoming, and northern Utah. The snow depth is shown in the image on the right, which is highest over central Idaho and Wyoming, where snowpack is near to just above normal. However, further south across the Sierra into Nevada and Utah, we have had significant improvements to the snowpack over the last couple of weeks as storms have moved through, bringing the snowpack above 50 to 70% of normal. The satellite loop from this morning shows a trough of low pressure moving across the Great Basin today. It will push clouds and any additional precipitation over the eastern half of the Great Basin for one more day. We do have a fairly amplified ridge of high pressure off the west coast, which will eventually start working its way eastward, bringing drier conditions and warmer temperatures to much of the Great Basin for the next week. Now looking at the weather pattern for later today, that trough of low pressure moves further east across Utah down into Arizona by later today. We still will have some cloud cover moving up across central Idaho, but for the most part drier conditions across the area as we move through this afternoon and this evening. We do have a fairly strong northerly flow, especially across the western half of the Great Basin, and for that effect we have very good dispersion in most areas with the exception of parts of far western Nevada. Looking at the transport winds today, and you can see that breezy north to northeast wind flow across much of southern and eastern half of Nevada into Utah and parts of Idaho, with much lighter wind flow up over northwest Nevada, again aiding in that poor dispersion. Mixing heights will remain relatively high across most all areas with the exception of the Sierra and northwest Nevada, which will be much lower today. As we move into Tuesday, this trough of low pressure now moves into the southern Rockies, with a ridge of high pressure building off the west coast. We'll keep that northerly wind flow on the east side of that ridge across the Great Basin as we move through Tuesday, and maybe a few showers moving up across Idaho, but again drier conditions further south. We will see those gusty winds keeping the dispersion good across much of the eastern two-thirds of the Great Basin, with lighter winds and poor dispersion over northwest Nevada into the Sierra. And again, the image on the left shows those transport winds, very similar to what we'll see today with those gusty north to northeast winds in about the same areas. Mixing heights will remain high over the eastern half of the Great Basin, but will be decreasing over the Sierra into western and central Nevada. As we move into Wednesday, that ridge of high pressure is still located off the west coast, with more of a northwest wind component and dry conditions over much of the Great Basin. Also, as that ridge starts to move eastward, temperatures will be warming this week to 5 to 10 degrees above normal from mid to late week. Looking at the dispersion on the right, good dispersion in all areas with the exception of the far western side of the basin. Looking at the transport winds on Wednesday, again those wind directions shift to more of a northwesterly component across the Great Basin and still breezy over the eastern half of the area, but winds will not be as strong as what we will see today and tomorrow. Mixing heights will remain relatively high over the eastern half of the area once again and in the north, and a little bit lower as you move further west. Looking at the forecast clearing index for Utah, you can see high clearing indices over western Utah into the central mountains today, with lower to moderate clearing indices over the rest of the state. Again, the clearing indices are highest where those strongest winds will be. Similar conditions on Tuesday, but we will see clearing indices increase more significantly over southern and southeast Utah by Tuesday, and then will increase region-wide as we move into Wednesday. Looking at the forecast amount of precipitation for the next 3 days, you can see some precipitation in central Idaho, Wyoming, down into the northern Utah mountains. Most of this precipitation will occur today in Utah, with drier conditions as we go through the next couple of days. By Thursday, we still have the ridge of high pressure off the west coast, which is flattening a little bit with northwesterly flow across the Great Basin, keeping again warm and dry conditions over Nevada, Utah, and the Arizona Strip, with still some clouds and occasional showers in the far north. Good dispersion is expected with the exception of the far western side of Nevada. Similar conditions on Friday, however, that trough of low pressure in the north will start to push further south, and this will bring a band of mainly cloud cover over much of the Great Basin on Friday, but there could be a few embedded showers, especially across Idaho or Wyoming. Good dispersion is expected, however, dispersion will be more in the poor to moderate range over southern and western areas of the Great Basin. As we move into Saturday, we have an area of low pressure developing off the west coast. This will bring increased moisture across the southern half of the Great Basin again, allowing for mostly cloud cover on Saturday, but we will start to see possibly a few light showers start to develop over parts of Nevada into western Utah. Generally, poor to moderate ventilation in parts of western Utah and western Nevada up into Idaho, with good dispersion further east. On Sunday, we still have some moisture lingering across Idaho and Utah for some cloud cover and possibly some light shower activity. Doesn't look like this system will bring any heavy precipitation this weekend, but again, at least some light nuisance showers and some more unsettled weather. Ventilation index will be high across the region on Sunday. The forecast amount of precipitation from Thursday through Saturday morning shows only some light showers up across Wyoming and the central Idaho mountains and further north, with dry conditions across the basin. But as we move later into the weekend, we may see again some of those light showers develop over parts of Nevada and Utah. Looking at our 8 to 14 day outlook, which takes us into the first week of April, above normal temperatures are expected over the southern half of the region with below normal precipitation, and any storms likely will be mainly affecting Idaho and Wyoming. That concludes our briefing for today. Check back on Wednesday for the latest updates.